Welcome to the Story Learning Podcast, regular doses of language learning tips and motivation to help you become fluent in any language. With me, Olly Richards. For language programs, books, free resources, and much more, visit StoryLearning.com.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the I Will Teach You a Language podcast. I hope you're having a great time. It's Chinese New Year here in Hong Kong. There's been loads and loads of festivities and a lot of eating. I don't even want to think about how many kilos I've put on in Hong Kong in general, but especially in the last couple of weeks. I love the food here in Hong Kong, but man, it's a lot of it's kind of very fatty, very oily. I'm going to have to go on a strict diet when I get back to the UK. Anyway, you don't want to hear about that. This is the podcast you need to be listening to for language learning tips and advice. There are 2 episodes a week when I'm on form, which I'm not at the moment, but I plan to get back on form very quickly. And some big news for all of you who have been hounding me for years now to produce transcripts. There will now be transcripts for every episode on the podcast. I'm super pleased to announce this because I know so many of you want them. So you will now be able to listen to my voice and read along with the show note, read along word for word on the show notes for the podcast. I'm not sure exactly when it's going to come in. Perhaps for next episode, we'll see. But very soon you can expect transcripts. They're going to be professionally done, so they're going to be error-free, hopefully. Touch wood. But a great resource for those of you who are not native English speakers. And maybe, I don't know, maybe some of you don't want to listen to me, you want to read me instead. So anyway, very pleased to announce that. I hope they are useful for you. Now, let's get into today's question from 15-year-old Jonathan.
Hi, Ollie. My name is Jonathan. I am 15, and I've been learning Hebrew for over 2 years now. I started out by learning Hebrew with Rosetta Stone, and that was pretty terrible, as is commonly being shared. It's not a very good language learning software, and it's very expensive. I did not learn near enough grammar, and I did not make near as much progress as I should have, considering how much time I spent. As suggested by Luca Lampariello, I have been learning with Assimil, and he suggested that I find some podcasts with scripts and to study that after I finish Assimil. And I'm at a bit of a crossroads. I'm kind of frustrated because I've spent so much time, but I haven't seen near enough progress, once again, considering how much time I've spent. And I'm not really sure what my best course of action would be, because I should be at least B1, having studied for over 2 years. I should be at least B1, and I'm not even there yet, so because I did not get the foundational grammar. So if you could answer a couple of these questions, that would be great. And also, how do we find comprehensible input for minority languages? Thank you so much. Greetings from Alaska.
Jonathan, my man, thank you very much for a good question. And, you know, I'm really, really pleased to see someone so young talking so eloquently and in such an informed way about language learning. You've got a very bright future, so I'm super happy to have your question, and hopefully we'll provide a little bit of help. You're in great company with Luca, obviously. Hopefully I can give you a few more tips. Rosetta Stone, yeah, you know, I only used it once for about 2 days. And the place where I was working, they when I was in Qatar, actually, the company I was working for got this kind of corporate membership for Rosetta Stone, and they emailed us and they said, hey, you can now learn Arabic with Rosetta Stone. So I logged into it, and after 2 days I just thought, what am I doing? Did not enjoy it at all. And yeah, let's not talk about Rosetta Stone. But I do want to say, Jonathan, don't be too hard on yourself. You know, I don't know if you've learned any other languages before, but it's easy to fall into this trap of saying I should be at B1 after 2 years. Maybe, maybe not. You know, if it's your first foreign language, if you're learning I'm not very familiar with Hebrew. But, you know, getting to a B1 level doesn't just depend on the software you use, it depends on lots of different things. So don't put too much pressure on yourself, you might be closer than you think. Now, I'm going to give you in this episode everything that I do and have done to learn Cantonese, which is a minority language, probably a smaller language than Hebrew, I would have thought. But actually, I don't know. Don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that at all. But yeah, learning minority languages is tricky because there's less material. And the most difficult stage of all is where you're at, Jonathan. B1 or just approaching B1 is the hardest point because on the one hand, you've exhausted all the beginner's materials, and on the other hand, you're not quite advanced enough yet to use native speaker content like podcasts. So that's why you find yourself in this tricky situation. Luca's advice is great to go and listen to podcasts, but, unless you've really got a strong constitution, you'll probably find, what you've probably already found, is that it's just a little bit too hard, right? So what we want to do is to get you material that you can work with, as you said, comprehensible input. It's that language material that's just above your current level, so you can understand a lot of it already, but you can also learn new things. So here's what I would do in your situation. Number 1, find other people who are learning Hebrew as well and ask them what materials they like. You can do that by going to forums online, such as the Unilang forum or How to Learn Any Language forum. You can look in Facebook groups, either Hebrew specific or big groups like the Polyglots Facebook group. There for Cantonese, for example, there's a great website called cantodict.com where there's all Cantonese learners congregate from around the world, and I've got some great tips from them. So simply go to where other people are already learning the language and ask them what they're using. That's number 1. You might find some gems. Yeah, so do that. Number 2, go to specialist bookshops. I guarantee you there will be material out there for you at your level. It may be a bit dated. It might not be, fresh, hot off the press 2017 stuff, but it's often just a question of finding that right material. So go to specialist bookshops in Alaska. If you've got a friend in Boston, ask them to go to that big famous bookshop in Boston for you instead. Or, I don't know, maybe I'll look for something for you in London and send it your way. There, you'll find something, but you've got to go out and look for it, dig up, dust off the corners of those forgotten corners in the bookshops and see what you can find. Here in Hong Kong, for example, I've found stuff that I've never seen anywhere else. Locally produced, locally published stuff. So go to bookshops where you are. Also, if you're lucky enough to visit Israel, then obviously go to any bookshops you can there as well. Number 3, search for bloggers who write about Hebrew and email them. All right, there are lots of people who have written about Hebrew, so Google them, get in touch with them via their website, and ask them for help. They're usually more than happy to do that. Number 4, find material that you like and hire someone to transcribe it. If you can't find Hebrew podcasts that you like that are at your level, look for YouTube videos, for example, that are in Hebrew and that are short and kind of at the right level, and hire someone, beg, borrow, and steal the money to pay someone to transcribe the stuff for you. That way you can get the transcripts you need. Now, I remember when I was delivering a workshop, a polyglot workshop, last year, I think, my friend Francesco was there, and he asked me this question, and I gave him this piece of advice, something that I did, which is to actually I paid someone to transcribe Cantonese TV series for me. And he went and did this, I think, with Estonian. And he actually came up to me and said, Ollie, that one piece of advice you gave changed my life, because suddenly he had the material. He didn't have the material he needed to study before. Now he did. So it changed everything for him. You never know, you might find people that have already done that. You can just borrow it from them. So who can you ask to do this? A friend or tutor. You could go, for example, on italki and hire a teacher, but instead of taking lessons, you ask them to use the time to transcribe stuff for you. You can go to upwork.com or even pros.com, which is a translating website, but people there will do all kinds of things. And it's quite affordable as well. So some options there if you are prepared to invest a little bit of money in it. And then finally, make your own materials. If you can find Hebrew-speaking people where you are, which I'm sure is possible, have some fun. Do some recordings. Ask them to transcribe it for you. Make your own. I mean, this takes initiative. It takes a bit of willpower to do it, but it can be great fun. I mentioned this in a recent episode, actually. I'm doing that here in Hong Kong. I found people to get together and have conversations, which I have recorded and I'm getting transcribed, and I'm going to make that available to the public. So you can really have some fun with this if you're able to, if you can be creative in that way. So those are 5 ideas. Let me summarize them quickly. Number 1, find people online in forums who are learning the language you're learning. Number 2, turn specialist bookshops upside down, inside out. Number 3, find bloggers who write about your language and get in touch with them. Number 4, find material you like and hire someone to transcribe it. And then number 5, make your own materials. I will put a link to all of the websites and things and ideas that I've mentioned in the show notes. iwillteachyoualanguage.com/episode 160. Likewise, if you've got any other tips, or maybe you're learning Hebrew and you've got some stuff you can share with Jonathan, please go to the show notes and leave a comment. Let us know some good resources and places to find stuff. Thank you, Jonathan, for the question. I hope that's helpful. I hope you get what you need. Don't despair. Keep going. As I often say, you're probably closer than you think. Make sure you keep speaking as well. Don't forget that one. Okay. So if you have found this podcast useful, I'd love a review on iTunes. That would really help me and let other people know about the show. You can open up iTunes, search for I Will Teach You a Language, and leave me a review there. I'd love you forever if you did that. Now, at the end of every episode, I like to leave you with a resource of some kind on the topic of the show. And this is very timely, actually, because I've just published on the blog a wonderful guest post from Jared, who writes about endangered languages. The blog post is called Endangered Languages, Tips for Learning and Using the World's Minority Languages. And so he goes into detail about this. It'll give you a whole host of new, of other ideas and places to go to help you if you're learning a minority language. Jared's phenomenal. He speaks languages that you might not even have heard of before. You know, he writes, on the blog post, he writes about, I can't even pronounce some of the... You're just gonna have to go and read it, okay? You can go to the blog, iwillteachyoualanguage.com, or find the link directly to the blog post and in the show notes. Once again, iwillteachyoualanguage.com/episode 160. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you back on the next episode of the podcast. Take care.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. And here at Story Learning, everything that I do is powered by stories, whether that's writing books, teaching lessons, crafting courses. My mission is to help everyone succeed at learning a new language through the power of story. And we now have comprehensive language courses in over 15 languages, from Spanish to French, Korean to Japanese, and across all levels from beginner to mastery. And you can take a 7-day free trial of any of these programs by visiting storylearning.com/courses. I've poured my heart and soul into creating these courses over the last 10 or so years, and we've helped tens of thousands of new students achieve their dreams of learning a new language, all through the power of story. So go ahead and take a free trial. There's no commitment. You can try out our method for free. See if this can also be the breakthrough for you that it's been for so many other people. storylearning.com/courses.